On March 23, 2026, Mozambique became a talk of the internet after an announcement by the President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky that following a video call that he had on the same day with President Daniel Chapo, Ukraine was exploring possibilities of importing its liquefied natural gas from Mozambique, in exchange for Mozambican forces gaining Ukrainian expertise in countering security challenges, especially in the northern parts of the country. The announcement had sparked curiosity from internet users on not just why Ukraine would opt to go way south to this less-known African country for its LNG supplies, but also on the expansiveness of Mozambique's gas deposits, or production for that matter, to the extent that Ukraine sees it as its potential foreign supplier, as an alternative to Russia, which is today bombarding Ukraine, and as well an alternative to Middle Eastern suppliers like Qatar and the United Arab Emirates, whose exports are facing challenges at the Strait of Hormuz, amidst the ongoing US-Israel war with Iran. It is in the aftermath of the announcement and amidst the ongoing discussions and queries on Mozambique's LNG capacity that we have prepared this video, to take a dive into the vastness of the country's natural gas deposits and wealth, and how the exploitation of the strategic resource is possibly going to significantly reshape the economy of this poor African country and transition it into one of Africa's economic powerhouses. For starters, natural gas was first discovered in Mozambique in 1961, but its exploration and extraction was not given serious attention by foreign investors until 2010, when a vast reserve of over 100 trillion cubic feet was discovered off its northern coast in Cabo Delgado province in the Rovuma Basin. The discovery was made by an American natural gas exploration and production company called Anadarko Petroleum Corporation, and whose assets in Mozambique were acquired in September 2019 by Total Energies of France for $3.9 billion, handing over Anadarko's 26.5% interest in the Mozambique LNG project to Total Energies, to make the French company the operator of the project. This acquisition of Anadarko's stake was actually part of Total Energies' larger deal to acquire all of Anadarko's assets in Africa, including those in Algeria, Ghana and South Africa, following Occidental's acquisition of Anadarko.
Big producers are battling to take over Anadarko Petroleum and its shale oil producing holdings in the Permian Basin. Occidental Petroleum came to the table today with an offer that values Anadarko at $57 billion, including debt.
The 2010 discovery was on the other hand followed months later by a 2011 discovery of the giant Mamba South field that contains up to an estimated 18 trillion cubic feet of gas, by an Italian multinational energy company called NESPA. Today, Mozambique's proven reserves are estimated at over 150 trillion cubic feet, which is approximately 4.2 trillion cubic meters, but some sources even cite a total potential of up to 180 trillion cubic feet in the Rovuma Basin alone, positioning Mozambique as an emerging global LNG player, despite its security and development challenges. With this, the country's natural gas deposits rank it as the third largest in Africa, that is after Nigeria and Algeria, ahead of major players on the continent like Egypt, Libya and Angola, and roughly 13th globally, placing it high among other top global producers like Russia, Iran, Qatar, the United States and Saudi Arabia. The aforementioned Rovuma Basin that is located off the coast of Cabo Delgado province in the northern parts near the Tanzania border holds the country's largest deposits, containing over 150 trillion cubic feet of proven recoverable gas, but we also have other smaller but established onshore fields at Pandé and Tamane in the Inhambane province in the southern Mozambique basin, containing approximately 3.5 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Extraction of the gas is managed by several international consortia in partnership with the state-owned National Hydrocarbons Company, and the country mainly has what it calls the Big Three projects, that is the Mozambique LNG that is also known as Area 1, the Area 4 gas block and the Pandé-Tamane fields, with the international oil companies dominating the production. The French energy multinational Total Energies holds the biggest share in Mozambique's gas venture, running the $20.5 billion Area 1 project in the Rovuma Basin, a project in which the company owns an operating stake of 26.5%, with 35% of ownership taken up by Japan's Mitsui and E&P at 20%, and the Mozambique government through its National Hydrocarbons Company ENH at 15%. Three Indian companies, that is ONGC Videsh Rovuma Limited, BPRL Ventures Mozambique and BES Rovuma Energy Mozambique Limited also hold a 10% stake each in the project, while Thailand's PTTEP Mozambique Area 1 holds the remaining 8.5% stake. The project was personally toured by President Daniel Chapo to inspect its progress on January 29, 2026, after it resumed works on the site in September 2025, following a 4-year suspension due to security challenges.
With a project cost of around $20 billion, Mozambique LNG represents one of the largest ever investments in Africa. And this project will make the region a new source of global energy security and encourage investments in subsequent expansion projects that have the potential for transformational change for Mozambique and its citizens.
The resumption of work on the gas project that has today employed around 4,000 workers became a reality after strong security guarantees by Rwandan forces that were deployed to northern Mozambique in July 2021 to counter insurgents, and which are set to remain in Cabo Delgado up to at least 2030. This return of stability in northern Mozambique even saw the US government approve in March 2025 a $4.7 billion loan to Total Energies via the US Exim Bank for the resumption of the project, and as of March 2026, the project is at 40%. While earlier reports hoped for a sooner resumption of construction and later extraction, the current official target for the first LNG cargo from the Mozambique LNG Area 1 project is set at 2029, and the project plans to create over 7,000 direct jobs during construction, with contracts worth over $4 billion reserved for local companies. The second biggest natural gas asset in Mozambique is the Area 4 gas block, which is also a major offshore natural gas block in the Rovuma Basin, holding roughly 85 trillion cubic feet of gas. It is actually the site of Mozambique's first ever major LNG exports in the recent times, featuring 3 projects, that is the now operational Coral South floating LNG facility, the proposed Coral North project and the planned Rovuma LNG onshore development. Italy's Eni operates the Coral South floating LNG, which is a 432-meter floating natural gas extraction platform that is the first ever deep-water floating liquefied natural gas facility in Africa, located 80 kilometers in the Indian Ocean. The facility produces 3.4 million tons per annum of LNG and taps into the 18 trillion cubic feet of gas in the Coral Reservoir, with production having started in 2022 to deliver LNG globally. This is also the world's first ultra-deepwater floating LNG, operating 2,000 meters below sea level, and it is expected to generate $19.3 billion in revenue for Mozambique over a period of 25 years. Following the success of Coral South FLNG, construction is underway for the planned Coral North FLNG, whose estimated value is $7.2 billion, and whose production is slated to commence not later than 2028, with estimated capacity of 3.5 million tons of LNG per annum. The Rovuma LNG, on the other hand, is a large-scale onshore project that is in development and led by ExxonMobil. It targets the Mamba complex, about 40 kilometers in the ocean, while its liquefaction facility and export terminal are set to be situated on the Afungi Peninsula, which is also the location of the neighboring Area 1 Mozambique LNG project. The Rovuma LNG's planned production capacity is around 15.2 million tons of LNG per year. The whole Area 4 concession is in the lead, operated by Italy's Eni, but on behalf of all Area 4 partners, which include the Mozambique Rovuma venture, simply known as MRV, and which is a joint venture comprising of Eni itself, America's ExxonMobil and China's CNPC, with the 3 jointly holding a 70% interest in the Area 4 exploration and production concession contract. The remaining 30% stake is held by 3 other partners, that is the Mozambique government through its state-owned ENH Oil Company, South Korea's Korea Gas Corporation and UAE's Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, with each having an interest of 10%. The Panday and Tamane gas fields are the third significant LNG natural gas assets in Mozambique, located in the country's Inhambane province. Unlike the massive offshore Rovuma Basin LNG projects, Panday and Tamane are mature, onshore conventional fields that are operated by South Africa's Sasol, and mainly supply gas via 865 km pipeline to Secunda, South Africa. Gas was discovered in Panday in 1961 and in Tamane in 1967, with both fields discovered by America's Gulf Oil, but for decades, The fields were considered as stranded due to lack of serious investors until 2004, when Sasol finalized purchase of the exploration rights and developed the fields, and production commenced the same year. Together, the fields have a base estimate of approximately 2.5 to 3.2 trillion cubic feet of natural gas, and even though production is currently nearing a decline, it is projected to start accelerating by 2028, with Sasol seeking to extend the contract to 2030 through new production sharing agreement projects.
Sasol is working on a solution, so we've already found a solution to extend this gas cliff to 2030.
Revenue from the project is generated through corporate taxes, royalties and the sale of gas to the local Mozambican market for power generation, in addition to exports. In terms of overall earnings and contribution to GDP, Mozambique's LNG is exported, and when Eni's Coral South FLNG became operational in 2022, the country was earning $5.5 million per day, but there's long-term potential of up to $100 billion in state revenues over a period of 30 years from the Rovuma projects. Its main export markets at the start were primarily Asian countries, courtesy of long-term offtakes for growing demand in Southeast Asian countries and India, but with significant volumes also sold in Japan, South Korea and Europe, through Coral South cargoes. So the recent announcement of the LNG to be possibly supplied to Ukraine only hints at the widening market for Mozambique's LNG, a market that might also extend to neighboring African countries, amidst the current Strait of Hormuz challenges. In fact, during his visit to Kenya on March 26, 2026, President Daniel Chapo affirmed that Mozambique is positioning itself as an alternative supplier of gas to the global market, particularly within Africa, highlighting openness to export the commodity to Kenya through Mozambican ports. In a press briefing with journalists moments after signing several MOUs and bilateral agreements with President William Ruto, President Chapo said that gas can be exported from Mozambique to Kenya and benefit the brotherly country and the Kenyan people, and we truly see Mozambique as one of the global alternatives for gas, especially for the African continent and our neighboring nations. Unfortunately, Islamist insurgency in Cabo Delgado that is ongoing since 2017 erupted shortly after the major gas discoveries and project announcements, with local communities and analysts widely attributing part of the violence to poor resource governance, such as limited local jobs and benefits from the mega projects, displacement of the populations, capture by the elites and grievances over inequality in the province. The insurgents had directly attacked gas infrastructure workers, leading to the aforementioned project suspension in 2021 as well as massive costs of up to $4.5 billion extra for delays and security. The attacks also led to a massive military intervention by Mozambique, and the deployment of Rwandan forces on July 9, 2021, a deployment that operates based on a bilateral agreement between Rwanda and Mozambique, and which is distinct from the regional Southern African Development Community mission in Mozambique dubbed SAMIM, which arrived 6 days later on July 15, 2021, to help restore security and secure the enclave around the gas facilities. Over 5,000 deaths have also been registered and close to 1 million civilians displaced due to the insurgency, but while the LNG projects are not the sole cause, with poverty, illicit economies and radicalization also playing roles, the gas wealth is seen as a major driver and target. Overall, Mozambique's gas sector offers huge economic potential but faces hurdles from security, cost overruns and the need for inclusive development to mitigate conflict risks, like TotalEnergies' recent announcement of reserving contracts of around $4.5 billion into the project for local companies and using local workforce. Full-scale production from the new projects could make it one of Africa's top LNG exporters by the early 2030s, and could eventually contribute to over 10% of the country's annual economic growth.